Today is Friday, January 28th, 2011, and I'm sitting with Kevin Parsons in his studio gallery and wish to talk to him about everything he knows about landscape architecture.
Yes, I'm Kevin Parsons, President of Kevin Parsons Associates. We are landscape architects, urban planners, urban designers.
Tell me about your government work.
Well, right out of Ball State, College of Architecture and Planning, back in the mid-'70s, I went to work for the City of Indianapolis as an urban planner in the Parks Department, and then in the Department of Metropolitan Development. After Unigov, the planning was merged, so we went from Parks to Metropolitan Development, still responsible for Parks planning, but we got more involved in the urban planning side.
For how many years did you work for City Parks?
7 years I was with the city. And then,
what were some of the projects?
Our first job really was finishing up the comprehensive park and recreation master plan that has to be updated every 5 years by state code. So that was kind of our first exposure, and that was really my first exposure to promoting a countywide trail system. That particular comp plan proposed, there were none, but we proposed that we need a countywide comprehensive trail system along the rivers, throughout parks, streams, creeks, the whole countywide system. So that was, I guess, my first initiation with trail involvement as a professional, was that comprehensive plan. Shortly thereafter, the first bond issue we were exposed to, there were a lot of projects that we got to be involved in, and they were all just park improvements.
Who was director of City Parks then?
Then, Sue Gilroy had been director up until the year I got hired, and then Ray Crow, former basketball coach at Addicts, Crispus Addicts with Roscoe Robinson, was the park director during my 1 year tenure there before we were transferred to Metropolitan Development. And Ray stayed there for several years.
And obviously, just thinking of this during his time, I would take it during his time there was a big push for the four-square sports, for court sports like basketball or baseball or...
Well, there was. I don't think it was Ray. It was really the neighborhoods were demanding more. We need basketball courts. We need tennis courts. We need swimming pools. I mean, and those demands are still there today. But
as opposed to either a nature garden or a trail and walking scenario.
Yeah, actually, in the 1970s, nature was not in vogue yet. The sidewalk system was adequate. Nobody cared. Trails really hadn't become a priority in anybody's mind. Not to mention the young, upcoming, professionals. Nobody really thought about it yet, so it was new.
About what year did you leave the Parks Department?
Well, 78, 77, we were transferred to Metropolitan Development, so I was there until 1983 when I went into the private sector. So I was there a total of 7 years, the two departments. And we dealt with the Parks Department the whole time. And in that time, we did a master plan update revision of Eagle Creek Park. We did all the major community parks, Broad Ripple and Garfield, and Brookside Parks. We were involved in master planning all those. We proposed trail systems, if you will. They were all short segments and boardwalks and within the parks. They were not linking into a bigger system yet. But at least they were on the master plan books, so they could be implemented later. And that's the advantage of a master plan. At least once you get it on the books, it's there.
Okay, now explain sort of the process of this comprehensive plan or master plan. It's a broad land use zoning type.
Well, you have to take the whole community into consideration at a comprehensive look. I mean, if we're going to propose a trail system, say that's countywide, then we need to look at the whole county and how could that be implemented over time. So you start. Say we had a piece there in Broad Ripple Park along White River. Well, the intent was that we would eventually have a trail system along the entire 30 miles of White River through the county, from county line to county line, and eventually those other counties would pick it up and we'd have an extended system into those counties. And you've seen that happen over the last 30-something years, primarily with the Monon Trail. I mean, that was the one that caught everybody's excitement the most. And that's been extended all the way up through most of Hamilton County now.
But once that master plan or comprehensive land use plan is passed, then all other building and future zoning uses follow that theme. So if there's a corridor or a square place or a parks or a private land, that land tends to be public or private or corridor or whatever.
Yeah, and all zoning and land use decisions can use that as a reference guide, because once it's established and adopted by the authority, which would be our city county council, then it can be used as a tool to approve or reject zoning proposals or land improvement proposals based on, the plan says we need a trail there. You're saying you're going to put a landfill there. We want the landfill moved over 100 feet so the trail fits, or whatever. I'm using that as an example.
Oh, that's fine.
That's unrealistic, but I mean that's how you can use that comprehensive tool once it's adopted legally, under state zoning laws. That then the commission can say no, you can't do that because the book says we need a trail there. And that's really how they get established. So around 1980, we developed a couple with federal funding, if you will, while we were at the city, reinstituting the entire park system that George Kessler designed back in 1909 through 1913. And we'd proposed a countywide greenway trail system. And I think this is around 1980. And we had an alternative, another grant that and this really followed the original George Kessler system, which was more inner city, but we took it out to the county limits because the park system had expanded to the four corners. And then we came back with another watershed and river and greenway trail, really following the streams and rivers that then again expand the trail system following these greenways along the river and water bodies. So with these two, and then the comprehensive plan, there was more of a adopted documentation to follow that concept.
And interestingly enough, having been involved with this, I can see where these are the rudiments for the preliminaries for what in the 90s and the 2000s has become the city parks and greenways plan. Yeah, exactly. What inspired you to move from the city to go out on your own?
They didn't pay very well. It was one big, real reality. Especially, I was not politically involved. I wouldn't help the parties out. So you got minimal pay raises, if any, since you weren't a party guy. And I just figured it was time to move on because I was feeling stagnant. We didn't get the opportunity to actually design a project through construction documents. We would master plan them and we'd get through design development and we'd have to hire consultants. So I just felt like I was missing, that growth and that opportunity.
All the implementation.
Yeah, you're missing it. It was still, say, my project, but I didn't get to do the final design. I didn't get to oversee the construction and those kind of things. So, it's part ego, but it's also just part of your professional growth as you want more. And I think the time was right. I was there through the whole Hudnut administration, and he was still mayor when I left. And luckily we did city Hudnut projects after I left, so the relationship was good.
What was a project that you worked under with your going to the large firm that exists today, or you could go point out where it?
Well, we
where it is
here locally in Indianapolis. We did the original Fall Creek corridor master planning for trail system along Fall Creek, really from White River all the way out to Geist, if you will. The project we actually were hired to design was just a downtown section, which was really from Northwestern Avenue or Martin Luther King today over to Keystone. And then we end up implementing, because of lack of funding, that first part never really got off the ground. We implemented the section from Keystone out to 56th Street in late 1988, and that was really considered the first greenway trail. There were no other greenway trails in the county yet, and even though that wasn't called a greenway trail, it's called a corridor trail.
Right.
Greenways came along a little later. That was the first one. So we master planned that. I think there was another consultant involved in really implementing a half that leg. And then we came back in phase 2 and phase 3, and we rehabbed that leg and expanded on it, and then added another leg all the way to 56th Street. So that was kind of the first one. Recently, when I'm lucky enough to also be involved in Fall Creek Place neighborhood, urban redevelopment of substantial success at a national level, we were able to reconstruct and expand upon George Kessler's Fall Creek Trail system between Pennsylvania and Central Avenue. So we were able to get that trail built, and the majority of it is in the footprint of George's. We had to change some of the grades to make them ADA and a few other things. So we put a boardwalk underneath the Delaware Street Bridge. So it's a continuous link without coming up to the street level and going back down, which was George's trail. So we got that two block long section of the historical footprint reconstructed during the Fall Creek Place neighborhood development here just in the early 2000s. We recycled limestone curbing from the Fall Creek Place neighborhood as curbing for our trail system. So we had local 100-year-old material recycled into the trail. So
now, was it ground up to recycle? Or
no, we put them. They're actually curbing on the along the trail.
Oh, that's neat. That's wonderful. We'll get close-ups of that.
And some of the relics, which I found earlier, we even found a part of a cheek wall headpiece of the original George Kessler's set of steps that I've got here in the office. That just a souvenir relic, if you will.
Now, for how many years were you at Snell?
I can't remember my math.
Okay, but it went into
83, 92. That'd be 9, wouldn't it?
9. High math here. 9 years. And then what did you do?
Well, then I started this firm, and that's Kevin Parsons Associates, and it was 1992.
And where were you
as
located?
a corporation for that? And then we found space here in the Stutz Business Center and moved in here and been here we're in our 15th year here now. So.
Since you've been on your own, what are some of the projects? Describe some of the projects that you have worked on.
Really right out of the bag when we first incorporated in 92, city, it was Julie Jacobs now was the park manager, Parks Department for construction urban design. Hired us to design the trail system for Holiday Park. That trail system was built in the 1930s, like similar to a WPA type format. It was kind of a CCC WPA hybrid, if you will, and had literally gone into total disrepair and just falling apart. So we went in and analyzed that trail system, which is on the banks of White River. It's really unique. It's got its own little environment there. It's one of the unique White River environs, if you will. It's got its own little climate. And there had been a fairly extensive trail system built back in the 30s. Like I said, after World War II, no maintenance at all. It'd become a derelict park and a derelict system. So that was really our big first trail system as this company. And I was still solo at the time, but it turned out to be very successful. We rebuilt the trails where they were. We added to it, expanded it, boardwalks and stair systems, and highlighted some of the natural phenomena, the tufa formations that drained out of the hillsides, and really there was an old rock garden that we rehabilitated that the former owner of the property of Forest Park had built. It was pretty unique also. So that and it became the Holiday Park Nature Trail, and then they built a nature center, and then the whole park was rehabbed. So the park's really come back, and it was the Friends of Holiday, the neighborhood association, that really was behind that whole thing. I mean, Parks Department may not have really done that if the Friends of Holiday Park hadn't insisted on it. So Julie hired us, which we were grateful for, and she was also the one that really initiated the whole Monon Trail too. So she had a lot to do in those early years with getting things rolling. And our most recent trail we did for Indianapolis Parks was 71st Street Trail that leaves it's under construction right now here in 2000. Started in 10, and in 2011 it'll be finished. But it leaves the north gate of Eagle Creek Park, and it goes through the interchange at I-65 at 71st and Lafayette Road, and then it continues east on 71st Street. It's a leg of a longer trail that will eventually leak over to the Pike Township school system and on down to Northwest Way Park. South out of the park, they've already created that first leg of the Eagle Creek Trail that will eventually go all the way down to Eagle Creek, that will tie back into White River eventually, the overall countywide trail system. So that the 71st Street really was our latest that is still under construction.
Is there something you have not seen or not experienced, a trip you want to make, a trail you want to walk on, some place to go, some place that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, most of Europe, Australia,
Oh, okay.
even Japan.
You will find Paris and eminently.
Yeah, I've not left. I haven't left the Western Hemisphere. So.
Okay, well you'll find Paris a
Or the
wonderful
northern.
place to walk. It's
Yeah, the urban scene.